Hey everybody and welcome back. Today we're going to continue working through the NPCs of Stardew Valley. We've completed our examination of all giftable villagers other than marriage candidates, and it's been a little while, but we're finally going to dive on in and analyze the most eligible villagers of the valley. I thought we should start with one of my absolute favorite characters in the whole game, and yes, I, like many others, consider Krobus to fall into the marriage candidate category. I mean, he gets his own room, just like any other partner, along with other things. It only seems fair. Just figured I'd get that out of the way. Krobus is a shadow person, and likely not the first you'll encounter during your time in the valley. Shadow brutes and shamans begin to show up in the mines starting at level 81, and you can even encounter brutes on your farm after combat level 8 if you have late night encounters turned on. For this reason, I think many of us were both surprised and kind of intrigued to see this little squishy pal when we first got that rusty key from Gunther. And, there's so much to say about Gunther and his stupid reward system, but I'll save that for another time. So when we do finally meet Krobus for the first time, we've probably already been working on the shadow person component of the Protector of the Valley quest for a while, which is a little awkward. But Krobus doesn't appear to hold it against us. We'll get into his dialogue more in a little bit, but consider this your reminder that if 10,000 gold is easier to achieve than iridium bars and battery packs, then you need to drag yourself down into the sewers every Friday. While Krobus won't have anything to say to you that day, he'll sell you 1 iridium sprinkler per week, and while you'll eventually be swimming in iridium with enough time in the game, those first few sprinklers can be really handy. Other than those sprinklers, the merchant of rare and exotic goods can also sell you void eggs for your emo chicken boy dreams, the coolest fireplace in the game with its own little hands, a star drop, and the return scepter, which makes walking from the shed at the edge of your farm to your shipping bin a thing of the past. While Krobus only carries some very niche supplies, and I can honestly say I've never bought his Thursday mixed seeds, some of the things he sells are absolute bangers. Most parts of Krobus' personality focus on his kind of ethereal, spooky nature. He's a monster at the edge of things, the only one who communicates with you, and the offerings in his shop reflect that unnatural feeling that Krobus brings to the table. Most of his goods are either spooky or quirky or both. He's got bat wings and slime, wicked statues, religious symbols, all the good stuff. Even his gifts focus on the eerie parts of the game. Well, at least some of them. Krobus loves diamonds and iridium, which makes sense to me as a call out to the mines where most of his kind lives. He also loves void eggs and void mayonnaise, which are both a little otherworldly, and again, those make sense to me. He loves pumpkins, which sort of fall into the Halloween spirit, so I'll give that one a pass. And he loves wild horseradish? I've got to admit, this one has me stumped. No one else in the game loves horseradish, and there's no in-game evidence to explain why Krobus might, at least to my knowledge. I tried to go straight to the source here, but unfortunately Mr. Barone was unavailable for comment. I don't have any great thoughts here, but I read on Wikipedia that indigenous Americans would use horseradish to combat scurvy, so I'm gonna go with that. While Krobus is almost functionally identical to spouses in Stardew Valley, there are some notable exceptions or differences, so let's take a closer look at some of those, since, like I said, they're unique to him, and we won't see anything like this again in the next few videos. For one, every other spouse has a marriage ceremony, of course, but Krobus just kinda moves in overnight. While you can plant a smooch on any of your other partners, Krobus elects for a heartwarming hug animation instead. Krobus doesn't get jealous no matter how many of the villagers you kiss in the spa at night, and you don't have to divorce him if you decide you want a new roommate. Krobus also doesn't do any chores around the house like fixing fences, feeding the animals, or watering crops. And finally, while you cannot have children with Krobus, he will raise the children from your previous spouses, which is something I find just absolutely hilarious. Imagine living on a farm with your one parent and their monster roommate. You would be so well adjusted. So yes, Krobus is a little different than any other villager who can potentially move into the farmhouse with you. But I do want to point out at least one dialogue that, for me, kind of blurs the line between roommate and romantic partner. When you have high hearts with Krobus, you can get a dialogue from him where he says you were nibbling on him during the night and mumbling about something called black lick or ish. I don't know about you, but I've had several roommates during my adult life, and if any of them were to nibble on me during the night, our conversation would go ever so slightly differently than the one you have with Krobus. It's also interesting that Krobus asks about this black lick-or-ish when his favorite snack at the movies is actually literally black licorice. Why so coy, Krobus? Sometimes your roommate just wants to nibble on their favorite snack in the bed. And speaking of the movie theater back there, possibly my favorite sprite in the game, like of all the sprites, is Krobus pretending to be a human so he can go to the movies. He doesn't actually love any movies, and he only likes one of them, so it's not like you can go there to raise hearts with him, but dang, it sure is cute to see him in that little purple getup. It reminds me of like the 3 kids in a trench coat trope. The licorice situation is not the only small discrepancy with Krobus' gifting desires versus his in-game actions. He can also occasionally give you a strange bun when you're roommates, even though he actually hates them. Shadow brutes in the mines also have strange buns as possible drops, so I wonder if shadow people tend to like them but Krobus specifically doesn't. They do require void mayo, which he loves, but maybe he just doesn't like periwinkles, I guess, which, fair. Literally everyone in the valley hates strange buns, so I'm also not sure if maybe it's just like a coding thing, or if it really was a deliberate choice to make Krobus hate them. Especially since Krobus doesn't actually have any unique hates at all, unlike most characters. But, like, after all this, what's actually up with Krobus? Why is he separated from his people in the mines? Was there a disagreement or a fight? Did he get kicked out? We know that the dwarves and the shadow people are not on friendly terms, and Krobus will tell you that the 2 groups have recently concluded a 1,000-year war, though there are still frustrations. Of course, we see the scene with Dwarf and Krobus and the wizard, and if you manage to get to the sewers in the first year, he'll even tell you that the dwarves would send an assassin after him if they could find him. Why do the dwarves care so much about this specific shadow person when there's a never-ending supply of them in the mines? Like, literally, I could find thousands if I needed. Sorry, Krobus. And they are even potentially on your farm. Is it just because they hate him? Or because being out of the mines is, like, offensive to them somehow? I think there might be a tiny hint here, but to be honest, it's pretty much pure speculation and a very loose theory. Krobus will tell you that his name means bridge crosser in his language, and that his people traveled to this plane after a great catastrophe. He tells you that he's been searching for a place to belong ever since leaving his people, and that even his own kind would punish him for living with a human. I think Krobus' wanderlust is a natural extension of that, like, forced relocation that his people experienced. To me, he's almost a little like Ariel from The Little Mermaid. He's always watching the humans from the periphery of society, playing with their trash, like the magnifying glass, and kind of falling in love with their lifestyle, while never actually being able to experience it. It's an easy assumption to make that Krobus has crossed the bridge from the life of a shadow person to that of a human, and that puts him outside the normal expectations of humans, dwarves, and shadow people. The dwarves would want to nip this in the bud before the shadow people and the humans potentially become closer, and getting rid of Krobus would remove the only monster who opts to communicate with humanity. That keeps the power balance a little more shifted toward the neutral state. It's unfortunate then that Krobus wasn't named Bridge Builder instead. He could have taught us a little bit about the ways people think, which would be pretty interesting. As it stands, Krobus is one of my favorite characters in the game. He brings a mischievous and whimsical energy to a game that's honestly surprisingly dark at times, while still leaving some mysteries in the wings. I really appreciate his addition, even if I'll never completely understand the wild horseradish thing. What do you think about Krobus? Is he the best option to raise your kids after divorcing Shane when you realize that his room is horrific? Have you ever snuck him into the theater? Let me know down in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.